Hey there, just a short video on labels because it came to mind. Actually, completely random. My husband and I were talking about labels on jars. It reminded me of this saying that labels are for jars of jam and not people. Well, yes, sure, that saying's a little cliche. I've written a blog and made a video called To the Anti-Label People, addressing, the kinds of people that don't want to accept our autism condition because they think that we're just trying to label ourselves with a disorder, which I explained quite thoroughly isn't where we're coming from. It's a self-identification. But, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have a sort of combination brain where I'm very logical and sequential, but I'm also very creative and abstract. That's more like my personality and my nature, whereas my autism kind of makes me more concrete. So I kind of use both together, and I call it like my right side and my left side kind of thing. I'm able to do a lot of discerning, and that's really helped me out even in my darkest hours when I needed to discern through them and be like, you're not, you're really upset right now, this kind of thing. Discerning is good because that way you can come to objective, happy mediums when it comes to thinking about the application of several labels. So my new book is called Beyond the Boxes, and it means thinking beyond the boxes. That means sort of, yes, there's a foundation, like, yes, this might sort of describe the cluster, because I sort of like to be concrete first in order to start the formation of an objective opinion. I need the concrete to start out with. Then I can discern after that. I think of a label, if it's the right label, the danger is being mislabeled. That is the danger. So for example, like going for my autism diagnosis, I was needing to obtain the right label to be properly understood, because it's insidious, and people don't understand how the features come off in women, how insidious it is and how subtle it is. And so without the right label, even with the label, sometimes people refuse to believe. They don't understand. They don't know how to recognize. They're not detailed, deep thinkers, so they don't know how to see my autism, even though people that know more about women with autism can clearly see my autism, especially fellow Aspies, but also people, certain non-autistics that are in the know. Very few. Still needs to be more people out there need to get themselves educated. But anyway, so labels for that reason are important, but when you are mislabeled, it can be really bad, especially with labels such as like just, generalized fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, or some other generalized chronic illness, especially when those labels are given just in order to say, yeah, this person has something and we don't know what it is because this medical system's not evolved yet. And then they stop testing at that point, which is what I said in my blog. That's kind of the misuse of a label. How I use a label is just to understand the general cluster, how to understand the gist, basically, of what's going on. And past that, I think in patterns, right? So it's like I have to sort of separate pattern type, the color, color code it. But from there, it will split into variations and an individual sort of plethora of constellation of a picture, and that's like it's like a fingerprint. So yeah, if labels were used just as basic framework, there's too many. Too many dullards out there and dull-thinking people that scarily are in positions of power, like doctors and whatnot. Especially in the public system, I find that the smartest of doctors, not that that's always the case, but the most objective thinking, intelligent doctors are not able to practice in public medicine because they know better what they're doing, and they don't agree, and they go branch out to the wellness and the alternative healthcare and whatnot. So it's hard because when you have dull, one-dimensional, desensitized thinking met with labeling, you have a lot of dangerous use of the action of labeling and what labeling is meant to do. You have misuse of it and abuse of it. Labeling, I think, is important just for that purpose of obtaining that basic start out understanding, but it's not to be stopped there. It doesn't define a human being. A label cannot and will never define an individual human being. It only helps other parties and the individual to understand the basis of their affliction or issue or type. It's important to type, like a metabolic typing. We don't do enough typing, but we do too much generalized labeling. We don't do enough typing, like I said, metabolic typing, body typing. And maybe it's just too generalized to, should maybe split it up a bit more. Like instead of having like 3 basic body types, we have ecto, meso, and endomeso, and we have different hybrids of it. It's the same as astrology. I mean, astrology is a creative thing, and a lot of people don't even think it's a science, but you have the sun sign, but then there's your exact day that you were born, and your rising sign and your moon sign and everything. Those factors make it an individual thing. So it sort of works in layers like that, outer layer, and not even layers, I wouldn't even say. Most importantly, you can't really put a picture to something as complex as that. You have to, you can't really put a picture to individual case. That's why I like saying plethora or constellation, because the label does nothing other than identify the basis, the general flavor, that kind of thing, right? And instead of working like this, label, and then everything comes out of this surface label that you think is what it is, it's taking that label, that basis foundation, and building upon it once you get more information objectively to understand the picture, the mosaic, the constellation, the plethora, right? So I hope that made some sense, and that's how we should treat labeling. And really, if we don't, then it's a misuse of what labeling should really be for, if it's going to be used in a functional manner, non-violent, socially equal, just kind of a manner, a humanistic kind of a manner. Take a label with a grain of salt. Labels don't define people. People define labels. And matters define labels. And situations define labels. And change defines and changes the nature of labels. And so forth and so forth and so forth. Put a repeat on that.